The year was 33 AD. Imagine yourself in the bustling streets of Rome, where merchants called out to attract customers and citizens debated the news of the day. But in a dimly lit room at the heart of the city, a quieter turmoil simmered. The Senate's chamber echoed with anger as senators were called to discuss a dire matter. Gold coins, once symbols of wealth and stability, were being clipped, physically shaved to extract precious metal, thus diluting their value. Within months, the Roman economy would feel the consequences of this decision, unraveling the very fabric of an empire that had stood for centuries. What the public would not realize is that this moment of greed was just the beginning of a cycle that has repeated throughout history, heralding the demise of great powers. Empires do not fall randomly, they are caught in a complex web of economic cycles. Dominance follows a predictable rhythm, marked by flawed monetary policies that sow the seeds of collapse. By examining the repeating patterns of history, we can decipher the warning signs that predict an empire's imminent demise. Join us as we explore 8 economic policies that consistently signal an empire's end. Understanding these can provide valuable insights into the dynamics of modern economies as well. In every empire, it begins with sound money, a currency perceived as stable and trustworthy. This foundational principle nurtures growth and encourages investment. However, unchecked expansion often paves the way for debt-funded endeavors. By the reign of Emperor Augustus, the Roman Empire was flourishing, its economy bolstered by an extensive network of roads and trade routes. The denarius, a silver coin, became the bedrock of this economy, facilitating commerce across vast territories. By 14 AD, the denarius had lost only a fraction of its value, a testament to sound money principles. The first sign of impending collapse emerges when an empire begins to lose sight of the value of its currency, often resorting to excessive borrowing. The Roman government increasingly financed its military endeavors through loans, banking on future tax revenue to repay its debts. The seeds were sown for a cycle of overexpansion and debt dependency. Just as the Romans expanded into foreign territories, modern economies today can become ensnared in a similar web, leveraging loans for infrastructure, welfare programs, or military intervention without paying heed to the long-term consequences. As the cycle progresses, the second policy, the indiscriminate printing or debasement of currency, takes hold. In the case of the Roman Empire, by the late 3rd century AD, the silver content of the denarius was slashed to as low as 0.5% from 90% just a century earlier. This movement marked the empire's decision to counter rising debt by debasing its coinage. The coin still looked like denarii, but their diminished silver content prompted a crisis of confidence. Citizens quickly recognized that the money in their pocket was worth far less than it appeared. In more recent history, a parallel can be drawn with Weimar Germany, which faced hyperinflation after World War I. By November 1923, the exchange rate had spiraled to an astonishing 4.2 trillion marks for $1. As people rushed to buy goods before prices shot up even further, the value of money plummeted. The act of debasing currency is often seductive, offering quick relief to an economic crisis, but it imminently leads to a storm of rampant inflation, eroding confidence in the system. The third policy warning us about collapse is the loss of public confidence. When citizens perceive their currency as unreliable, they withdraw their faith in the economic systems surrounding them. In the case of the Spanish Empire during the 17th century, the influx of silver from the New World may have initially buoyed the economy, but it soon plunged it into chaos. By 1600, the Spanish crown initiated a default on its debts, causing investors to flee and further undermining trust. Debt became synonymous with instability, and reliance on foreign loans only deepened their financial plight. Modern economies can witness similar patterns. As unemployment rose during the 2008 financial crisis, confidence in the U.S. economy plummeted. Illustrating this point, in a globalized world, crises can ripple through financial markets, leading to stock market tumbles and mass withdrawals from banks, a reaction not unlike what historical empires faced as confidence waned. The fourth sign tripping the wires of collapse is the decline of the reserve currency status. During the 20th century, Britain benefited greatly as the holder of the world's reserve currency, the pound sterling. However, following the devastation of World War I and increasing American influence, this began to change. By the 1940s, the global economy pivoted toward the US dollar, formally solidified in the 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement. This shift, although gradual, illustrated that economic powerhouses can lose their positions. Examining today's environment, some analysts pose the question, is the US dollar losing ground? With the rise of alternative currencies and digital payments, fluctuations in trust can be sudden and severe. The discontent over reliance on a single currency can sow seeds for disruptive change in financial stability, heralding a painful transition reminiscent of past endemic failures. Halfway through our examination of these 8 pivotal policies, consider the parallels already drawn. Which empire do you think we are most like right now? Tell us your thoughts below. Returning to the patterns that lead to decline, the 5th warning emerges: reliance on expansive welfare programs. Empires often believe that social programs can secure their standing, but as spending proliferates unchecked, economic burdens become unsustainable. The Ottomans, at their height during the 16th century, flourished due to their vast conquests. However, by the 19th century, their commitment to expanding welfare led to fiscal strain. Their infamous Tanzimat reforms aimed to modernize and centralize governance, but heavy taxation fueled discontent. By the time the empire faced financial collapse during World War I, the once thriving Ottomans had accumulated unsustainable debts to foreign powers. This resonates uniquely today, as nations grapple with the promises of social spendings, such as healthcare and education, yet confront the harsh realities of economic limitations. The 6th sign of decline rests on the false belief that empires can somehow exempt themselves from these economic cycles. Every empire believed it was the exception, convinced its wealth and power could stave off the inevitable. Consider the British Empire, which clung to its dominance long after its economic underpinnings eroded. The belief in endless growth masked an impending crisis. As with the Romans and Ottomans, history reveals that every empire's advantage can become an illusion. Each empire's unique circumstances might obscure this point, but the fundamental mechanics remain the same. As we approach the final stages of our countdown, we encounter the 7th economic policy: systemic corruption. A pervasive culture of corruption undermines economies through misallocated resources and eroded public trust. In the later years of the Roman Empire, corruption flourished, officials lined their own pockets while neglecting public welfare. Historians attribute rampant corruption to the decline in public services and disillusionment with the governing class, which ultimately destabilized the state. Modern parallels echo the agony of past empires as corruption undermines political and economic institutions worldwide. Citizens today grapple with similar frustrations, where money may be funneled into corrupt systems rather than sustainable growth, often leading to violent crises, protests, and systemic breakdown, a reminder that the wheel of history turns with alarming consistency. Finally, the 8th policy indicating an empire's imminent collapse is a failure to adapt to changing global dynamics. Throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, the Spanish Empire stubbornly resisted reform, sticking to antiquated systems while rivals innovated. The decline in global trade and the rise of Atlantic powers, such as England and France, pushed Spain into isolation and decline. This alarming inflexibility can be observed in modern economies as well, confined by policy frameworks that fail to address emerging disruptive technologies and shifts in economic power. As we have traced the economic policies that consistently signal an empire's imminent collapse, remember that these patterns are more than mere historical anecdotes. They can serve as powerful lenses through which we can evaluate our own circumstances today. Cycles of history reveal a shared reality that transcends time and power. Empires rise and fall, driven by fundamental economic principles that demand attention. As we witness the ebbs and flows of confidence and currency, the parallels remain with us, reminding us of the invisible machinery that often leads to the downfall of great powers. Every great power believed it was different. The ledger disagreed. Subscribe, one collapse decoded at a time. The patterns we've observed unfold like a clock, each tick marking the approach of inevitable decline, where the hands of history move in perfect synchrony, reminding us that the past offers crucial lessons for our present and future. Each economic policy we explore carries a weight of consequences that reverberate through time, effectively shaping the rise and fall of empires. As we delve deeper into the realm of economic mechanisms, let's explore further the intricacies that have defined the collapses of great powers for centuries. The ninth economic policy revealing inevitable decline lies in the mismanagement of natural resources. A classic example resides within the collapse of the Easter Island civilization, which, by the 19th century, had overexploited its resources, particularly its palm trees. The lack of foresight in managing the island's natural wealth led to deforestation, soil erosion, and eventually societal collapse. While the fate of Easter Island may not ring as loud in the annals of history as that of Rome or the Ottoman Empire, it serves as a crucial lesson. Historically significant empires often mirror this phenomenon. By the late 17th century, the Netherlands, once a formidable maritime power, faced a decline after depleting its own resources, particularly herring fisheries, which were central to its economy. With the overfishing of herring stocks, the nation lost a vital economic lifeline, reflecting a stark reality: unchecked resource exploitation leads to an unstable foundation that is prone to collapse. Today, similar practices mirror these historical follies worldwide. Regaining balance in environmental stewardship becomes increasingly essential as populations swell and demand for resources grows. The 10th sign to note is the increasing disparity in wealth and resources. The French Revolution of the late 18th century serves as a vivid illustration, where the extremely wealthy elite simultaneously squandered wealth while the vast impoverished masses faced harsh realities. Louis XVI's court flourished around the lavish lifestyle of the aristocracy, unfazed by the stripping away of basic rights by the working classes suffering from economic exploitation and heavy taxation. By 1789, the crack of revolution sounded by the storming of the Bastille, laying bare the futility of ignoring socio-economic divides. This lesson resonates today within societies where vast inequalities exist, leading to unrest and division. Nations such as the United States, where wealth is increasingly concentrated among the top echelons, echo similar historical disparities that led to upheaval. Economists warn that too great a divide can fray the social contract, igniting fires where collective disillusionment simmers, hearkening back to moments when history was forged in the flames of revolt. The 11th policy of impending collapse centers around poor fiscal management, manifesting often in the form of unsustainable debts. The famed fall of the Soviet Union in 1991 serves as a stark reminder of the accumulated damage from poorly directed economic policies. Burdened by vast military expenditures and misaligned spending priorities, the Communist Party faced an alarming budget deficit that spiraled out of control. At its dissolution, the Soviet economy was operating with an estimated $90 billion deficit, exacerbated by inefficiencies and a resistance to necessary reforms, ultimately leading to its unraveling. What remains pertinent today is the incessant rise of national debts that are often unexamined until crises arrive. Nations all over the world face similar dilemmas where fiscal irresponsibility, obscured by political rhetoric, threatens stability. The lessons learned from the Soviet experience elucidate how an empire's financial fragility can quickly be exploited by underperformance, an ever-present danger in today's fast-paced global economy. The 12th policy we must consider is the imperiled moral fabric of society that often erodes during periods of turmoil and excess. The Roman Empire illustrates this phenomenon through the gradual acceptance of moral decay where civic responsibility waned, giving way to corruption and self-interest among the ruling elite. By the time Rome fell, civic duty was largely a relic of the past, replaced by an appetite for self-indulgence and exploitation. The modern equivalent can be observed in varying degrees across the globe, where leaders prioritize political gain over public good, leading to a lapse in moral standards that breeds systemic distrust. Indeed, societies that foster ethical behavior and transparency, where leaders hold themselves accountable to the collective, stand on sturdier ground. The erosion of these principles becomes a powerful predictor of instability, as moral decay only furthers societal fractures. As we transition closer to the conclusion of our economic policies, we note the 13th warning: the complacency of leadership that prevents timely and necessary reforms. The Roman Republic suffered due to an entrenched political aristocracy unwilling to consider adaptive change as crises deepened. The eventual transition to imperial rule intensifies this complacency, sacrificing democracy to retain power amid rising challenges. Similarly, in the contemporary landscape, we find policymakers resisting reform as economic pressures mount, dimming the hopes of those who seek innovation or transformation. The inability to pivot in times of need encapsulates a dangerous blindness that often precedes collapse, relegating empires to mere footnotes. Finally, we arrive at our 14th and perhaps most profound economic signal of impending doom: political fragmentation. The fracturing of unity across political parties has historically destabilized many empires, as observed in ancient Rome when internal strife led to civil wars in the 3rd century AD. This period of the empire's history, known as the crisis of the 3rd century, also known as the military anarchy, saw a rapid succession of emperors and competing factions arise, tearing the fabric of governance apart, rife with civil discord and power struggles. In the modern context, we observe similar dynamics. The increasing polarization of politics across the globe, seen in contemporary elections and governmental stalemates, reflects a growing discontent that can fracture unity, driving wedges between the populace and those in power. The ramifications ripple outwards, destabilizing economies and magnifying discontent, ultimately mirroring the political tensions that heralded the fall of yesteryear's great powers. Cognizance of these economic policies equips us with a clearer understanding of our own historical context. As we traverse the sands of time, the patterns forged by prior empires run parallel to our contemporary world. The clock ticks loudly, echoing the lessons of the past. An attentive ear can hear the impending chimes of change. The mechanisms that underlie the rise and fall of great powers remain immutable. Yet within this cyclical history lies a profound epiphany, an awareness that fosters vigilance against repeating the errors of yore. Every great power believed it was different. The ledger disagreed. Subscribe, one collapse decoded at a time.